Hey everyone, I am so excited to talk about this special revision technique this week. I've got some tips for you that are going to change your manuscript from something that feels good to something that feels polished and professional. The best revision hacks, the best revision tools that I know of are the ones that when you're just reading a book casually, you don't even know the writer is doing it. It just goes into that manuscript so seamlessly, so organically, but it makes all the difference. It makes your reading feel polished, refined, professional. So let's take a look at this week's tip and you'll see what I mean. So the technique that I'm going to talk about today assumes that several things are true. You are at a stage where you are working on revisions and you have a very good idea that the basic fundamental elements in the story are going to stay as they are. In other words, you have looked at your stories arcs and the main characters and their wishes and their obstacles and their goals. These things are all fleshed out and well understood. And what you have now is a really rock solid story, but you want to sharpen those sentences. You want to put the reader right into the scene, right next to your characters. That's where we're at when we start thinking about free indirect speech. So why do some narrators feel alive and others feel flat? Most beginning writers like to tell us what happened. And I wouldn't even say beginning writers. I think most early drafts, the writing tells us exactly what is happening. But experienced writers, or those writers who are on the third or fourth draft, as you refine that language, you are letting us experience what happens through the character's eyes. And in order to do this, we use this technique I just referred to called free indirect speech. Free and direct speech creates voice, right? Have you ever read a story where that character feels so real because it's so voicey? It means we can almost hear that character speaking. We're inside that character's head, and we can predict whether certain words are words that they would speak or not, because that author has nailed their voice so well. And we often think that in order to establish voice, it must be done through dialogue, which indeed it can be. That is a very good way to establish a character's voice. But voice can show up in narration as well. And it really works wonders when it does. So free and direct speech is how we do that. We are allowing a character's personality to seep into the storytelling itself. So check out these three different versions with me. In our first version, we have narration plus a thought tag. Jane looked at the dress. I can't afford that, she thought. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But think about where you, the reader, are sitting in comparison to Jane in this first example. You are not up close with her. You are observing. In version two, we have a direct thought. Jane looked at the dress. I can't afford that. We're getting closer now. We are up there in Jane's head. We know what she's thinking when she sees that dress. And so we do feel a little bit closer to her. This isn't just being, we don't quite have that distancing effect that the thought tag gives us. But now in version three, we have free indirect speech. Jane looked at the dress as if she could ever afford something like that. Notice that all three of these sentences are still in third person. We don't have to switch to a first person POV to get really close to that character's voice. In version three, where we are using free and direct speech, we are hearing those words as they would sound coming from Jane. Free and direct speech is when the narration gets woven in with the character's voice, maintains third person POV, but establishes that voicey sound that makes us feel connected to a character. The narrator is still talking. We're not reading Jane's exact thoughts, but we're reading narration that has been just kind of colored by her attitude, colored by her perspective, and colored by the way that she forms ideas. So a really simple way to think about it is a formula. Narrator plus character voice equals free indirect speech. So I think it's probably just even from looking at those examples, it's kind of clear why writers like to use it. We've got this first example without free and direct speech. She was nervous about the interview. Again, there's nothing wrong with that sentence. That works. But watch what happens when we use free indirect speech instead. Great. Another opportunity to embarrass herself. That second version has more personality. It feels more personal. It feels almost like she's confiding in us what she's feeling. We get that touch of cynicism that is not apparent in that first example. So we can get some of that intimacy and some of that personality that typically we think of getting through either dialogue or through a very through a first person point of view. Direct speech is also really cool because it lets characters show up in a lot of different ways, not just in the thoughts of your character, but even in descriptive writing about an environment, about a setting, can also reveal character. So let me show you what I mean. In this neutral description, we have the restaurant was crowded. But watch what happens when we use free indirect speech. Restaurant was packed. Apparently, everyone in town had chosen tonight to go out. There's just a little bit more personality, a little bit more character in that second delivery. It's no longer just a neutral observation, a neutral description, where we're feeling a character bump up against that crowded restaurant. It suddenly becomes a friction point that gives us a better sense of how that character is feeling and also who that character is in terms of how they view a crowded restaurant. So it's the same restaurant, but it's just a very different way of experiencing it. And we are almost put into that restaurant with the character as a result. Here we just have another example. Neutral. Tom opened the electric bill. Free and direct speech. Tom opened the electric bill. Wonderful. Exactly what he needed today. Nobody needed to say, Tom thought, wonderful. Instead, we get to feel Tom's frustration because we've sort of stripped away those other barriers that create a wall between Tom's experience and our viewing of it. And we are brought up close and personal. So as you dive into revision, I would really recommend thinking about this technique and looking for places where you can place it strategically in your manuscript. So look for sentences like these, and we all our manuscripts have them. And as I said before, there's nothing wrong with them, and there's a time and place for them for sure. But they're also, you can look at sentences like the ones we're going to look at as opportunities to really elevate your writing and see something different. Find a sentence like, she wondered if he was angry. He thought the meeting was pointless. She realized she was late. Let's get rid of some of those distancing words, that wall that is between us and these characters, and rewrite it without a thought tag. So instead of she wondered if he was angry, try, was he angry? Instead of he thought the meeting was pointless, try, what a complete waste of time. And we're just going to get to know your characters that much better as a result. So the key takeaway here is free indirect speech really is going to help readers stop feeling like they're observing your characters and they're going to start feeling like they're in the story with your characters. The narration is still existing. You still have that third person point of view, but the character's voice is getting threaded in alongside of it for this really neat, polished effect. This is so easy to do, and what I love about this is you will just be so surprised by the impact that this simple technique can really have on your writing. I hope this was helpful. Please hit like, and if you would like more videos like this to drop in your inbox each Tuesday, hit subscribe. I'm constantly coming in here making videos just like this one. And also, I would love to share this free gift with you. It is a guide to help you determine if your book is ready to query. You can grab the link in the comments section. I'd also love to invite you to check out Self-Editing Essentials. This is my group coaching program for memoir and fiction writers who have finished or almost finished writing their manuscript and are ready to learn the art of self-editing. You can use the QR code here or check out the link in the comments section to learn more about this group. Finally, I hope that you'll consider joining us for Story Circle. This is my free weekly writing sprint. We meet every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern on Zoom, and we just get together and write for an hour. It is honestly one of the most productive hours of my week, and the writers who attend tell me the same thing too. So I'll also stick a link for that group in the comments section below, but you can use this QR code if that's easier. Please join us. Happy writing, happy